What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 college football schedule preview and projected record series. The Iowa Hawkeyes are up next before we preview their schedule for 2024 and give them an early projected record based on how tough their schedule is. Let's take a look at what Iowa did back in 2023. Here were my projections and predictions last year for the Iowa Hawkeyes. My projection had them at 8-4, and then my prediction for them last year was also 8-4, but Iowa was a little bit better than that compared to my projection and predictions last year. Iowa going 10-2 last year in the regular season overall in 2023, but 10-4 overall if you count their conference championship loss to Michigan. And again, this is the team that made it to the Big Ten championship last year, and they ended up losing that game. And then, of course, if you count their Citrus Bowl loss to Tennessee, this team again went 10-4 last year in 2023. So a 10-win season here for the Hawkeyes last year. Here was the schedule for Iowa in 2023. You look at their non-conference schedule, they played Utah State, Iowa State here on the road. Of course, that's a rivalry game that they almost play every single year. And then, of course, played Western Michigan as well. So they won all three of their non-conference games. Then you look at the two losses last year on the schedule. They lost to Penn State there on the road on September 23rd in Big Ten opener. And then, of course, lost to Minnesota here at home on October 21st. But you look at this schedule last year, not a really tough schedule at all. I mean, they just had to play Michigan State, Penn State, and Rutgers out of the Big Ten, East and everything. So Penn State does make the East a little bit tougher, but they didn't have to play Ohio State or Michigan. The only time that they played Michigan was the Big Ten championship. So again, Iowa had a pretty favorable schedule last year. Let's now look ahead at the schedule for 2024. Here is the schedule for the upcoming season for Iowa. And before we go game by game and preview each and every single individual game on this schedule, let's take a look at who the Hawkeyes will play in the non-conference. So this is their non-conference schedule. They will play 3 official non-conference games. They will play Illinois State, Iowa State, of course, and then, of course, Troy here out of the Sun Belt. They do play, of course, Iowa State almost every single year. This time they will play them at home. They beat them on the road last year in a low-scoring type game, which I think it could really play out that way this upcoming season. But they get a couple of, cupcake games. I wouldn't really say Troy is a really big cupcake, though. That's a pretty good Sun Belt team sometimes over the years. And then, of course, Illinois State. I think this is probably their easiest non-conference game on this schedule. So that is the non-conference schedule for Iowa. And the good news about this schedule is that you get all your non-conference games here at home. And again, Iowa State is a rivalry game. You never know what can happen, but they also get that game at home as well. Here is the schedule for Iowa in 2024. Let's go game by game now and preview this entire schedule here for the Hawkeyes. They start things off here with Illinois State on August 31st, so that'll be a home game there for the Hawkeyes, and then they play rival Iowa State here in week number 2 on September the 7th. And then they play Troy here out of the Sun Belt here on September the 14th. So Iowa will play their 3 non-conference games here to kick off the season. And then they begin Big Ten play here. They'll open up conference play here on the road at Minnesota on September the 21st. And then after that, they get a bye week here in the last weekend of the month of September. Then they get to the month of October. They'll play Ohio State here on the road on October the 5th. So you got back-to-back road games here on September 21st and October 5th on the road at Minnesota and on the road here at Ohio State. The good news is you get a bye week in between these 2 back-to-back road games. I think the good news about Iowa is that they get a bye week here before playing a big-time road game on the road at Ohio State. So that's a really good spot for a bye week. And then they play Washington here at home on October the 12th. One of those newcomers, of course, coming up this year in the Big Ten. And then they play Michigan State here on the road on October 19th. Then it's Northwestern here at home on October 26th. And that closes out the month of October. Then they get to the month of November. They'll play Wisconsin here at home, I should say, not on the road. It's at home here for Iowa on November 2nd. And then they play UCLA here on the road on November 9th. So they will play them on the road. That's one of those other newcomers this year in the Big Ten. And then they get their second bye week here on the 3rd weekend in the month of November. And then they play on the road at Maryland. So they got back-to-back road games here. But again, the good news is you get a bye week in between both of these back-to-back road games. So that's like 2 straight times that Iowa does get a bye week in between their back-to-back road game trips. And then they close things out with Nebraska on November 29th. This game will be on a Friday, of course. So that's the schedule for Iowa in 2024. My thoughts on this schedule, I think it's a pretty tougher one compared to last year. I think the good news, though, about this schedule is that you get a bye week between those two back-to-back road games of Minnesota and Ohio State, and you get the bye week before playing Ohio State on the road. That is a huge win there for this Iowa team. And then, of course, back-to-back road games again with UCLA and Maryland. And once again, you get, a bye week in between those two back-to-back road games. So I think this schedule really sets up nicely for Iowa, but it's still a really tough schedule either way. So let's now get a projection here for Iowa. Again, this is not an official prediction. This is simply a projection based on how tough the schedule is and also based off of where these teams were from last year. Here is the scale I use here for my projections. If it's a 1% game in the red, that counts as an automatic loss in that 1% range. 20% games in the orange are games where the Hawkeyes will be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs. 40% games in the yellow are going to be games where Iowa will be about a heavy underdog in by about a touchdown. 50-50 games will stay in the white, the games that I think can go either way. 60% games in the purple are games where Iowa will be favored by at least a touchdown. 80% games in the blue by about a couple touchdowns. And then the green games here at 99% are the easy wins here for Iowa, and that's the percentage I will start here with Iowa for this projection. So we'll start with the green games here at 99%, the easy wins here for Iowa, and I think you got a couple of them on this schedule. Illinois State and Troy, these are your two non-conference games here, 2 out of the 3 non-conference games here in the green. I think Illinois State is definitely over 95%, but I wouldn't really say that Troy game is over 95% because usually Troy is a pretty good Sun Belt team. I do expect them to probably be a little bit good this year. They weren't really that talented last year, but I do kind of expect a little bit of fight there with this Troy team. They are a Sun Belt team, and it is kind of hard to tell how Iowa's offense is going to be this year. The Iowa's offense was one of the worst in the country, but defensively, that's where they're going to be able to hold off these teams. I think you can favor Iowa in both of these games. You can count them as automatic wins here in the green here for the Hawkeyes. So those are the couple games where I think Iowa will be favored by at least more than 3 touchdowns, but they count as automatic wins here in these projections in the green. So let's now go to the next percentage, the games in the blue where Iowa will be favored by a couple touchdowns. When I look at this schedule, though, I don't really see any games where Iowa will be favored by a couple touchdowns, though. So let's now go to the next percentage at 60%. The games where Iowa will be favored by at least a touchdown. And I think you got 3 of them on this schedule, and they're all on the road. Michigan State on the road, UCLA on the road, and then Maryland on the road as well. So I know all 3 of these games are road games. They definitely should be 50-50 games because, Iowa wasn't really that good on the offensive side of the football. It's really not just the fact that these are all road games and all the fact that, Iowa's offense was not really good last year. It's just the fact that all 3 of these teams are pretty average teams. Michigan State was absolutely terrible last year. They're going to have a new head coach this year. UCLA just lost Chip Kelly. He's going to be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, so that's definitely a big concern there for the Bruins. But with it still being on the road, I'm going to put this one still in the purple. I think Iowa's a more talented team than UCLA as well. And then Maryland, they got a lot of question marks as well. I don't really know what to expect from this team either as of right now. I haven't really looked at their roster either. So again, all 3 of these teams that you're seeing in the purple are definitely teams that were pretty average. But again, Michigan State and UCLA are going to have 2 new head coaches. And then for Maryland, they just got a lot of question marks. I don't really know what's going to be the case here for the Terrapins. So that is the games where I think Iowa will be favored by at least a touchdown. They're not guaranteed wins, but I think they'll be favored at least by a touchdown on all 3 of these games, even though they're on the road. And that's exactly why I put them in the purple as well, just because they're on the road. All right, let's go to the games now where Iowa will be an underdog in. Do I have any games in the red or orange? I don't have any games where I think Iowa will automatically lose or maybe be like a couple touchdowns of underdogs. But I do have one game here in the yellow at 40%, and that's on the road here at Ohio State. So I think Iowa will be an underdog here against Ohio State on the road. I probably would put this one in the orange, but I'm going to stick with it and put it here in the yellow based off of where these 2 teams were from last year. I think they were both pretty even. Both defenses were pretty even. Offensively, both teams really struggled last year, so I think that's the reason why I'm going to put this game in the yellow for right now. Ohio State just hired Chip Kelly. I don't know if you saw that news a couple days ago. That's a really big-time, move there for the Buckeyes at Ohio State. So again, I think Iowa will be a heavy underdog in this one, and with it being on the road in a very tough environment, I think you have to put at least this one here in the yellow. You know, if it was at home for Iowa, I definitely probably would make it a 50-50 game. But the rest of the games here that you're seeing here in the white are definitely 50-50 games. There are like 6 50-50 games here for Iowa that can go either way. Iowa State, Minnesota on the road, Washington at home, Northwestern at home, Wisconsin at home, and then Nebraska here at home as well. All 6 of these games that you're seeing in the white are definitely 50-50 games here, in my opinion, for the Hawkeyes. It's just kind of hard to tell, and it's kind of hard to project Iowa here just because based off of where this team was from last year and definitely on the offensive side of the football. I think, you know, we could kind of expect low-scoring type games if that offense can get fixed for them. But again, almost all these games that you're seeing in the white are definitely games that they can all win. You know, Minnesota's on the road, but you got like 5 other games at home. And imagine if they win all those games. They could probably go 10-2 with just 2 losses coming to maybe Minnesota and Ohio State on the road. But, you know, like I said, this is not an official prediction. This is simply a projection based on the schedule. So let's get a projected record now for Iowa here for 2024. We count the green games as automatic wins. Then we, of course, split those purple games at 60%. You average them out at 60%. Then you average out the underdog game against Ohio State here on the road at 40%. And then you average out here all the 50-50 games at 50%, and you could say they win like 3 out of the 6 games here at the 50-50 range. And the overall projection that you get here for Iowa in 2024 comes out to be 8-4. So the same projection for me as last year for Iowa in 2023, and the same projection here for 2024 is at 8-4 here for Iowa. Not saying that Iowa's going to be a really bad team. Again, this is not an official prediction. This is just a projection here based on how the schedule sets up and everything. And to be honest, I think the schedule really sets up nicely for them. You got Iowa State at home. You got Northwestern, Wisconsin, and Nebraska. I think those are your really important games here. Washington definitely is a tough one to call. I definitely would favor Iowa in that game for right now. I probably was going to make a change there, but, I'm going to stick with it and put it in the white for just right now. And again, like I said, it's kind of hard to tell how Iowa is going to be this year and how good are they going to be on the offensive side of football. If they can get that offense situated, this could be a very dangerous Iowa team next season. But again, this is my projection here for Iowa for 2024. It is 8-4 for 2024. Give me your thoughts on this Iowa team down in the comments below. What do you think their projected record is for 2024? Give me your worst case scenario and best case scenario for this team down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.